All right, so here is Islam Makhachev. His future undeniably is in the Hall of Fame, one of the greatest lightweights of all time. No longer in the shadow of the one of the greatest lightweights of all time. No longer in the shadow of the Magomedov, remarkable the body of work he has put forth in the octagon this way.
It's so hard to beat Islam Makhachev because the expectation was on him from day one to be great. He's done it time and time again. He's exceeded the expectation. And that says he has all the skills. Great wrestling. Grab, great striking. The man does it all inside the octagon, and that is why.
And of course, the late great Magomedov, not here, but front of mind for all of these athletes. And Coach here, Islam Makhachev steps inside the octagon. He is ready to fight. Tonight with a chance, DC, not only to defend this belt for a third time, but to do something that his mentor and brother Khabib Nurmagomedov never did, which is to say win a 14th fight inside the octagon.
Yeah, win 14 fights inside the octagon and like 13 in a row. He is quickly becoming one of the guys to be considered the greatest lightweight of all time. He has all the skills. He's a tremendous wrestler, tremendous grappler, but it's his striking that I think separates him from most. He's a really high-level striker and a guy that carries a ton of confidence. I remember being in the gym with this kid from the very first day, and it always felt like an eventuality.
The UFC 330 main event between Islam Makhachev and Ian Machado Garry is shaping up to be one of the most intriguing matchups in recent UFC history. These two fighters have completely different styles, different backgrounds, and very different paths to the championship stage. Islam Makhachev has already established himself as one of the most dominant champions in mixed martial arts, while Ian Machado Garry has quickly risen through the UFC ranks and positioned himself as one of the sport's most dangerous young contenders. This fight is much more than a simple battle between a grappler and a striker. It is a clash between experience and ambition, proven dominance and potential, and a seasoned champion facing a challenger who believes he has everything necessary to take the title. Islam enters the fight as the favorite, and his incredible track record explains why. Over the years, he has defeated some of the toughest opponents in the sport and developed into one of the most complete fighters on the UFC roster. Islam's wrestling, top control, submission ability, timing, and patience have made him extremely difficult to defeat. His training within the system developed by Khabib Nurmagomedov and the late Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov has helped him build a style based on pressure, positioning, and relentless control. Once Islam gets an opponent to the ground, escaping his pressure becomes an enormous challenge. He rarely depends on a single takedown attempt. Instead, he constantly connects one attack to another, forcing his opponent to defend multiple positions without giving them enough time to recover. But Ian Machado Garry presents a very different challenge. The Irish welterweight has built his reputation around confidence, movement, precision, and excellent distance management. Garry prefers to operate from the outside, using his height and reach to land clean combinations while making his opponents work to close the distance. His footwork allows him to create angles, avoid unnecessary exchanges, and quickly reset whenever an opponent gets too close. He also possesses a level of confidence that makes him particularly dangerous against experienced fighters. One of the biggest factors heading into this matchup is the physical difference between the two men. Garry naturally competes at welterweight and brings significant height, reach, and frame advantages. Those physical attributes could become especially important during the opening rounds when Garry is fresh and able to maintain a high level of movement. If he can keep the fight standing, his jab, straight punches, kicks, and long combinations could allow him to score consistently while preventing Islam from getting into his preferred grappling range. Garry's biggest objective will be maintaining distance and forcing Islam to chase him around the octagon. The longer Garry can keep the fight at the end of his punches, the more opportunities he may have to frustrate the champion.
I'm up it on a string, Tracy Island, time traveling, diamond could have sheet heartaches.
And it's an entrance that's becoming almost iconic here at Cage Warriors.
She's a silver lining.
Ian Garry walking out to the Arctic Monkeys, are you mine? And I think that's a question that he asks himself every time he looks at the picture of the Cage Warriors welterweight title. I mean, if you believe everything that Ian Garry says, that belt's practically his already. Dan, is there any chance that this young man is overconfident, if anything?
Well, it's always a possibility, but you don't get very far with a lack of confidence in this sport. And when it comes to throwing punches, you need confidence to commit to those things. And Rustam Akman, you've got to bear in mind, he's coming off 2 losses. He's been released from the UFC. That's not going to do wonders for his confidence. He's stepping in there against an undefeated fighter that's coming in with all of this confidence oozing out of him. I mean, that alone will put pressure on Rustam Akman because he knows he has to perform tonight. Gary's expected to perform.
Well, we've seen him be nothing but successful here on Cage Warriors in recent years. Put together a phenomenal record, and the wins just get a little bit.
But Islam's greatest weapon is precisely his ability to take away that space. Rather than rushing recklessly toward his opponent, Islam patiently pressures fighters toward the fence, limits their movement, and waits for the right moment to attack. Once he gets his hands connected around an opponent's legs or body, the fight can change almost instantly. His ability to combine striking threats with wrestling makes it extremely difficult for opponents to predict what is coming next. Another major advantage for Islam is his championship experience. He has already competed in multiple 5-round fights against elite competition, giving him valuable experience in managing his energy, making adjustments, and staying composed when the pressure reaches its highest level. Championship fights are often decided by small moments, and experienced fighters understand how to remain patient when things do not immediately go according to plan. Islam has been in those situations before. Garry, however, is facing a completely different level of challenge. He may be confident and talented, but fighting for a UFC championship against one of the most dominant athletes in the sport is an experience that cannot be fully replicated in training. That is where Gary's mental strength will become just as important as his physical abilities. Still, confidence is one of Gary's biggest weapons. Throughout his UFC career, he has consistently shown that he believes he belongs at the highest level of the sport. That belief could become extremely important against Islam because Garry cannot afford to enter the fight already intimidated by the champion's reputation. He needs to trust his movement, trust his striking, and remain committed to his game plan even when Islam begins applying pressure. The striking battle itself could be much more competitive than some fans expect. Islam has made significant improvements in his stand-up game over the years. Earlier in his career, many people primarily viewed him as a dominant grappler, but his striking has developed considerably. His boxing fundamentals, defensive awareness, timing, and confidence on the feet have all improved. His knockout victory over Alexander Volkanovski showed that Islam possesses legitimate finishing ability with his hands. Garry may still have the cleaner long-range striking and greater reach, but Islam can no longer be treated as someone who is dangerous only once the fight reaches the ground. Cardio could also become one of the deciding factors in this 5-round championship fight. Both fighters have demonstrated impressive conditioning, but their styles require them to spend energy in very different ways. Islam's wrestling-heavy approach requires tremendous physical effort, especially when he repeatedly attempts takedowns, maintains top control, and pressures his opponent against the fence. Gary's style also demands a lot from his body because constant movement, footwork, distance management, and lateral movement become increasingly difficult as the rounds pass. If either fighter begins to slow down after the 3rd round, the entire dynamic could change. A tired Garry may struggle to maintain the movement that protects him from Islam's wrestling, while a fatigued Islam could find it more difficult to close the distance and maintain the pressure that normally makes his opponents uncomfortable. Defensively, both fighters have strengths that could play a major role. Islam rarely allows opponents to enjoy extended striking opportunities because the constant threat of a takedown forces them to think about defending their legs in position.